Welcome to Tag Talks Happy Hour with Ajit Kara. One part small talk, all parts real talk. This is the part of the day when Ajit gets to know the people behind the job titles at Tag.
Hello, my name's Ajit Kara. I'm the CEO of Tag Americas, and welcome to my Happy Hour podcast. I decided to do this podcast because most of my folks know that I believe that Tag has the best people in the world, and one of our biggest assets is those people. And so I want to do a series of podcasts to talk to the folks and understand what's inside their heads, where their backgrounds are, what makes them tick, and just have some fun with them. I'd like to welcome Dan Kanacki, Director of Sourcing Operations. Dan, welcome to Ajit's Happy Hour.
Thank you for having me, Ajit. Cheers.
First, you got to try the wine.
Okay. Very refreshing.
Is that nice?
Yeah, it is.
It's a little bit dangerous drinking at 11 o'clock in the morning as this podcast, isn't it?
It is, but it is Thursday. And we do have our Thirsty Thursday here.
We do have our Thirsty Thursdays.
We're just building a foundation for later.
So thank you again, Dan, for doing this. Mm-hmm. So tell me a bit more about where did you grow up? We've had a lot of international folks on the calls so far, on the podcast.
Mm-hmm. So I actually grew up in Queens, New York, but my family is from Serbia. Oh. And I have two older sisters, 10 and 11 years older, so I'm officially the blessing, as we like to call myself sometimes. Yeah, so I was first born here in the States, and I was born in Queens, New York, Elmhurst, Queens. Lived in Jackson Heights, Ridgewood,
I know Jackson
Glendale.
Heights.
Yeah.
I'm Indian, as you know. Isn't that where all the Indian shops are?
I was 5 years old when I was last there. But there's been a lot of transition in a lot of the neighborhoods in Queens, as I'm sure everyone knows. But there was a big Indian influence there at one point. I don't know if it still is or not.
I think we went there to get some wedding saris for my daughters at some point. Not that they got married, but when they were going to. Yeah. So there's a huge selection there.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, and have you been back to Serbia?
I have been twice. I was there once when I was 7 years old, and I went with my sister, who at that point was 17, if you do the math. And we were by ourselves, and it was the first time flying on a plane. Oh. And we just had a little bit of conversation today earlier about pilots and riding in planes.
Because you kind of look like a pilot today. You got your hat on, your glasses. You do look like a pilot.
Yeah, I wanted to be comfortable today, and comfortable clearly means I look like a pilot. But it was... And typically in a traditional Serbian family, I would say, children get sent off to the old country for, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. And that was my first experience there. And a quick story, again, petrified of flying.
It is a long way as well.
It was about 6 hours. And I get there and, we're the family from the Americas and big deal. My dad's town is a very poor village town.
Right.
Outhouses and everything. So a 7-year-old never experienced this before. And they're like, hey, what do you want to eat? Like, what do you want? And we stayed with my aunt. And I was like, well, we just got here. I'm hungry. They're like, want some eggs?
Yeah, you're a big guy as well.
Yeah. All right, go to the chicken, farm or the area and pick up some eggs and I'll make them for you. Wow. And I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah. But it was later on when dinner came about and do you want some chicken was offered. And I said yes. And I saw the result of that. Needless to say, for 3 to 4 weeks, I was eating cake. So
you learn where food comes from.
You do rather quickly and shockingly.
Yeah. Do you get a sense when you travel back to places where your family clearly came from? There's a level of pride that you have when you are in America, and that we're very blessed and privileged to be here. I mean, how did you feel when you go back? And did people treat you slightly differently because you're the American-born kind of guy?
100%. There's almost like a royalty-like aspect to coming back home. And especially depending on what your region is, right? Yeah. Again, my family came from a poor village. But what you understand, or you don't understand quite, when you get there, you understand that they don't realize that they're living in poor circumstances. That's their life. And they live off of their land, and they don't see it as being poor. We on this side are like, wow, we have to go to an outhouse. Yeah. We have to do this. And it's just a different perspective, and it gives you a different perspective on how fortunate you really are to live in this wonderful country.
So I'm going to come back to that perspective in a moment, but I can relate to that because when I go back to my mother's village in India, very similar to you, and they don't have very much, but my observation, I don't know if you saw this as well, they may not have very much, but they appear to be a lot happier. The family unit is actually quite important.
100%. We went probably 10 years ago now. sort of a family trip.
With your 2 children?
No, my 2 children weren't born, but I went with my wife. And my wife, part of her family's from Croatia. And, there was a whole big Serbian Croatian thing. But what was wonderful is we got to experience where our family came from on both sides. And it was truly wonderful.
Do you think this kind of background, back to my point, is because you're one of the folks in the team that always stands up for right? And I know that your 2 children are very important to you. The family value is critical. So it's plastered everywhere in what you do and how you're bringing them up and what you're doing. Do you think that's had some impact on you around the values that you hold?
It definitely does. And I totally lost track of what I was trying to say before, and I'll get back to it. But what we saw on our last day on our trip, we were in the area that was most poor.
Yeah.
And we had such a great time because it was just love. It was just pure love and simple things, right?
Yeah.
It was pure love. And that's what we're trying to, my wife and I, we're trying to instill that in our kids. And then, times today are very challenging and each generation has its own challenges, but it seems like sometimes that gets lost, and we try as much as we can to instill that in our kids. And you're right, family's everything.
We do a great job, like when we have our Thirsty Thursdays, and if someone's slightly going awry with too much, you're always the guy that makes sure they get home, and they do the good stuff. But moving the questions around, what did you study at school/college?
Well, I never attended college.
Right.
I never got a chance to. There's a lot of internal circumstances that dictated that. However, I was fortunate enough for my uncle to bring me on into the print trade.
Oh, is that right? It's a great trade.
It is. It was better years ago, but it's evolving. I'll say that. And it kind of opened me up to this wonderful industry that we're all part of at its infancy. So I really focused on working in a print shop at 16, 17.
Did you ever see, because I started in print as well, and in the UK they had that horrible passing out ceremony that when you passed your qualifications or whatever, you were tied to some big bins and they would throw paint over you. I think those things are illegal now.
I also think that's very region specific.
So you've never been doused in paint?
I've never been doused in paint, but
ink. Well, it's not
in ink. Yeah. But the ceremony that we have here is when you start working on a press. There's an ink called warm red, and what you do is the pressman says, "Put in some warm red in the fountain," and you do it, and he goes, "Don't touch it; it's warm." And you question it, of course, and then when you go to touch it, you slam your hand in the ink and. That's the ceremonies we had here in the States, Ajit.
I'm astounded at, I know it's become much more automated and computerized these days, but I remember the old Pantone color books and the fact that when you were running printing presses, it was a work of art. Like you had to mix the inks to the Pantone thing.
100%. And that's how I grew up. And now everything's automated and computerized. But I started working when you didn't even have consoles. You had keys that you had to open or close in order to have the proper ink coverage on that particular image. So technology is beautiful. We benefit from it every day. Yeah. And that's definitely no different in the print industry.
I also noticed on calls that you have probably more eyewear than Elton John. Colourful eyewear would be my view as well.
Yes. So I'm not responsible enough.
Where does that come from?
So those are all reading glasses. And the reason for it is I'm not responsible enough to have expensive glasses because I've had 2 in my life and they've broken within a week each time. So now in our new age of virtual meetings, I like to think that I'm a fashionable guy.
You are.
And really the only thing I have to offer now are the glasses when I'm on a call or a virtual call. So that's why I try to dress it up.
I look forward to it. I look for what color glasses is he going to wear today? My personal favorite is the deep white glasses.
Those are good. I actually had a friend of mine had a white out 40th birthday party, and I had a white hat, white glasses, white suit. It was quite the scene.
Is that where you met the man?
Oh, Jay-Z.
Jay-Z.
No, that was early on in my courtship of my wife. There was a party at the 4040 Club, which Jay-Z owns.
Wow.
And we had friends that rented out a suite, which is, it's probably like $100,000 a night.
Oh my God.
It's ridiculous. And celebrities walking all over the place. And I stole a hat from the table.
Liberated.
Yeah, liberated. A hat from the table that was just sitting there looking to be swiped. And I put it on my head. And it was from the fashion line that was hosting that party.
But Jay-Z's fashion line?
No. It was of my friend's fashion line, right? So he had it there and music stops. And all of a sudden, Jay-Z's music starts playing, and he starts walking up, and we're like, who is that? And he walks by, and he sees the hat, and he comes and he gives me a hug, and he leaves. He could be bothered with me. But from there, all the hostesses started running up and like, do you need bottle service? No. So they clearly confused me for somebody else.
Some celebrity.
But we benefited from it.
I think you nearly became a celebrity, didn't you? Like, let's be honest. You are a sporting prowess. Talk to me about your baseball aspirations and what happened.
I had aspirations, Ajit. And the problem with that is you need some foundational pieces in order to be able to move on. Your talent's talent, but you need to be surrounded with other things in order for you to move on to bigger and better things. And unfortunately, I was not surrounded with that foundational base, but the talent was there. And when I was 17 years old, I was throwing 95 miles an hour.
So you're a pitcher then?
I was a pitcher.
Are you impressed that I know what a pitcher actually is?
I am. The fact that you added the ER instead of just saying pitch is impressive.
So you're the pitcher?
So I was a pitcher, and, I continued to play, but one of my highlights was just walking on to playing when I was 28 years old, still holding on to the good old days. And I have and need surgery on my elbow and shoulder, and it's a mess. Every 3 or 4 years, I wouldn't play and would build back up again.
But didn't you play at a high standard for a short while?
So I played single A, and it was in Maryland. And the problem was I had my first outing. I gave him my all. To get signed, right? And it was a walk-on, and I got signed. And my first appearance was in relief, and I threw out my arm.
Oh my God!
First 8 pitches, so I never got anybody out, and my arm was just drooping down.
So was that because you were trying too hard?
It's just because my arm was shot. It still is. I'm still very proud. I could throw a football 50 yards, which is pretty impressive still at my age. But it was me holding on to that little last grasp. And it didn't work out. But, I could say I played single A ball. I made the team. And that was at age 28. And had I been more focused and had that foundational piece around me when I was 18, 19, 20.
And are you a pushy dad? Are your kids learning this from the sidelines?
I coach. What I do is I encourage not quitting. So if you commit to something in life in general, use sports as life lessons. You don't quit on something.
No, it's a team.
It's a team. You can't let down your team. You're there. You have to try. Sometimes I go overboard, and sometimes I try to hold back. It's really learning that balance. And, that's kind of being a parent, is trying to find that balance.
Your team spirit comes through all the time. What have you done in your life that's genuinely scared you, apart from flying?
Apart from flying? Honestly, what I feared and still fear, my biggest fear is roller coasters.
That's funny.
And it's because of a lack of control that I have.
Right.
If you put me on a roller coaster that goes fast, I'm okay with it. Once it starts going up and around, and so I had one instance where I did go on, trying to teach my son, you have to try things. So I decided I was going to try things. And this was before we had kids and before I met my wife. But I tried a roller coaster, and
that's funny.
Similar to what you said, I only went once. That's all it took.
Well, I think your friend I had one flying lesson. Yeah. That's the clue. I only had one flying lesson.
There you go. That's the clue.
Ask Ajit anything.
Thank you so much. It's been a fascinating conversation. So this is the time when I say, have you got any questions for me?
I do. And I'm not going to make it a 5 or 6 parter.
There you go.
I know you're very in tune with pop culture.
Oh my God.
Current
I'm not.
And past.
Right.
And I know you're very interested in music and TV and movies and non-American sports. So my question to you is, if you had the opportunity to be at the top of any of those 3, sports, movie, entertainer, or music, what would it be and why?
Interesting. That's a tough question. I'm going to go for musician. And the reason why is because I have literally no talent. I can't sing. I can't play a musical instrument. Unlike Kaylie here, who's very talented. She can play the piano and sing and do it beautifully. I have no talent whatsoever, but I love music, especially the more older music, like Motown, Temptations. I love all of that. And in my head and in the shower, when I do sing, in my head it's great,
Yeah.
but I know it's not. So to be able to stand with some talent would be a life ambition that I know I could never achieve. So for that alone, I'd love to be able to do that.
Ajit, I think you should sing a few bars of anything. Your favourite Temptations song. Come on.
I'm never, ever going to embarrass myself to that extent. When we do karaoke nights, I'm the guy by the bar buying the drinks. I refuse to engage.
So you have never engaged in karaoke?
I've never engaged in karaoke, and I won't.
I really find that hard to believe, actually.
True.
And I'll tell you something. You say you have no talent, but your voice in this setting is very soothing.
Oh,
I don't know.
I like
it could be the accent. I don't know, but
or the wine.
Or the wine. Well, yeah, it is 11 o'clock, right? However, there's a certain soothing quality to how you're delivering your questions, and you might have a future in podcasting.
Maybe I should do a reading series books of where I put people to sleep. That could be
It would be children's stories because they'd only have to be 5 or 6 pages.
Well, exactly. And I only like children's stories as well. Big font. Dan, I would just like to thank you again and to say people like you with your sporting background that puts teams first, your background of being very humble, and I think you are, and the wonderful contribution that you provide, TAG, makes you an amazing person. So thank you so much for everything you do. Wonderful to get to know you a bit more today, and enjoy the rest of this wine. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful, and I look forward to the rest of your podcasts.
Join us soon for another episode of Tag Talks Happy Hour with Ajit Kara and learn more about the people behind the job titles at TAG.